Welcome to the Prize Fighting Business. I'm your host, Daniel Casado. The Prize Fighting Business is a weekly show that provides you with an inside look into the business of prize fighting and combat sports through interviews with fighters, coaches, gym leaders, managers, entrepreneurs, and anyone else intimately involved with the prize fighting business. Get insight into how the professionals approach their career. My guest today is Cory Galloway. Cory is a professional mixed martial arts prize fighter. He is 11-9 in MMA, 1-0 in professional boxing, and 2-0 in professional kickboxing. According to Tapology.com, Cory is the 11th ranked active bantamweight in Indiana. He has his next fight upcoming this Friday, May 3rd, at LFA in Vail, Colorado. The fights can be seen live in person or on Access TV starting at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Cory, thank you very much for joining me.
Happy to be here.
So, Cory, tell me about your upcoming fight for LFA in Vail.
Cool, yeah, I'm really excited. So I'm fighting, it's this Friday up in Vail. I'm fighting Adam Martinez. He's a tough scrapper from Factory X, another Colorado gym.
Yeah.
It should be a fun one. I think we'll stand up and throw down a little bit, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, because they're also known for their striking as well, being primarily a Muay Thai, but also MMA school.
Right, yeah, for sure. And it looks like he likes to brawl a bit, so we'll see how it goes.
It sounds like a fun fight. And what is your background?
So my background, I started boxing when I was 16. I had around 20 amateur boxing fights. Kind of halfway through that, I started fighting MMA. The gym I started training at was an MMA school. I just took to boxing quickly, so I started boxing. Started fighting MMA when I was 19, and then it's been just going since then.
How old are you now?
28.
Okay, yeah. So 9 years. 9 years as a professional. That's amazing.
No, I turned pro at 21, so seven
okay.
years as a pro, but 9 years as an MMA fighter. Yeah.
We'll certainly dive into that more, but that seems like a pretty quick transition, amateur to pro. 2 years, is that normal?
I think so. Maybe now guys fight a little longer amateur, but I had 11 fights. I was 10-1 as an amateur. I was ready to start getting paid.
So you were averaging about 6 fights a year as an amateur?
Yeah, when I was an amateur, I was fighting almost every week in MMA and boxing. Wow. It was awesome. I loved it. I miss those days for sure.
Kind of Thailand style then.
Yeah.
Cool. So your upcoming fight in Vail is obviously at altitude. Have you fought in the mountains or at altitude before?
I have not. So I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever fought anywhere really high altitude. I mean, now that I live out here in Denver, though, training at high altitude, I don't think it'll be a huge factor. I don't think it's that drastically much higher where it's going to change anything too much, but we'll see.
Cool. Yeah. And do you do anything to prepare differently, like because it's in Vail as opposed to if you were taking a fight in Arizona?
No. I'm always trying to push my cardio. I think that's one of the my biggest strengths is that I'm ready and willing to go for the full distance. So, I mean, nothing really changes where the fight's at.
Yeah, training at altitude in Denver, you feel is enough? Yeah, I feel comfortable. I was actually up in Vail 2 weekends ago with my girlfriend, and when I was up there, I went for a nice run just to see, and I didn't notice any difference. So I think we're good to go. And some high altitude training under your belt then.
Yeah, for sure.
Higher altitude training. Cool. And so for our viewers or listeners that don't know, your fighting nickname is the People's Champ.
Yep.
So Cory, the People's Champ Galloway.
Yep.
And how did you get that nickname?
So when I was 19, I was still an amateur. It was my first amateur title fight. I won a title, and there was like an after party at some nightclub, and I got to get in because I fought, which was cool because I was only 19, so I was getting all kinds of wasted, and it was like a fancy club. They had like a bathroom attendant, and I tipped the bathroom attendant like $10 or $20, and I was like, every time I walk in, you got to announce the champ is here. And he was an old black guy. He's like, all right. Every time I walk in, he'd call, champ is here. Every time. It was so funny. And one of my buddies, just because of that, started calling me the People's Champ, and then it just stuck from there. That was it. And we've been riding that out.
Yeah, that's probably the best origin story I've heard. So
yeah,
you got to keep that one.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, yeah.
Cool. And LFA is a prominent regional promotion in the area, and they do a lot of Midwest and actually national fights too. How many times have you fought for this organization? So
I haven't fought for LFA specifically, but prior to them becoming LFA, which I think was only a couple years ago, they were split in two organizations. They were RFA and Legacy Fighting, and then those two merged to build this. And in the past, I fought for the RFA for 4 fights, and I was 3-1 with them. But that was back probably 5 years ago now, 6 years ago.
And was RFA on TV as well?
RFA was on TV, yeah, same on Access TV.
Yeah, so the LFA fights are on Access TV.
Right.
Have you fought previously on a televised portion of a card?
Yeah, so all except for one of my RFA fights was televised. I fought on a Bellator fight that was televised, and then a couple other fights that were like televised locally but not like nationally. And then I fought out in Czech Republic, and that was aired on some European channel somewhere. I'm not really sure what.
Was that your last fight?
That was two fights ago. Well,
okay.
Yeah, I fought in a tournament in January, and that was before the tournament.
Yeah, and the tournament you're speaking of, they actually had another iteration of it this past weekend,
right.
But the King of Sparta tournament.
Yeah.
And you fought that at 135 pounds?
Right.
And tell me about that experience, because I believe you made it to the finals, right?
Yeah, so that was really cool. I'd fought in tournaments before as an amateur, but this was a one-night tournament, and it was different rule sets. So boxing first round, if you advance, it's kickboxing. If you advance there, the finals is MMA, which is really cool.
So you're fighting three times in one night?
3 times in one night. You had about an hour and a half in between.
Wow.
And I had never done that, but I figured that's kind of right up my alley, so I was excited about it. I got in, I felt great in the boxing fight. That's, I think, is where I'm most comfortable. And so I had no problem there. And then it was weird because I came back and, you got all the adrenaline from winning, and then you sit down and you I got really cold, like freezing cold. I was like, man, I don't know if I'm going to get warmed up again to fight. But then as soon as it's like, all right, you're up next, I was ready to go again. And then once you're in the ring, it wasn't any different than having one fight in one night. Once it starts, you're not like, oh, well, I already fought one. You're just in another fight. So, and the kickboxing fight went really well. I tried to just fight a smart fight. I think I outlanded him everywhere and knocked him down in the first one, an easy decision. And then I had another about hour and a half off until the finals. In the finals, I fought Josh Huber, who's another Colorado guy, a really experienced vet, tough guy. We went at it in the first round. It was really fun first round. He cut me a little bit. I took him down at the end. He was hitting me with leg kicks, and I'd been kicked in the leg for the last 10 years, so I wasn't really worried about them at all. And then in the second round, he hit me with a leg kick right on the outside of my knee, and it lifted my leg up. And I went to step back down, and my knee popped. And I dropped, and the ref called it, which was very unfortunate. It turned out that nothing major was torn.
Good.
But I had knee surgery about a year and a half ago now, so I think maybe my knee just wasn't fully there, and those kicks and the 3 fights in one night took it out. It was a bummer of a way to end the tournament, but it was a hell of a time, and I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sounds like quite the experience. Had you ever fought more than once in a night, let alone 3 times before that?
No, I fought in the Golden Gloves. I once fought twice in 1 week. Okay. But I'd never fought in the same night, so that was definitely cool and something I'm looking forward to doing again, hopefully.
Yeah?
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
For sure.
So your fight upcoming this weekend against Adam Martinez at LFA in Vail, you're somewhat familiar with the camp that he trains at. Do you know anything about him specifically? Have you seen him fight before?
I don't know much about it. I've watched a little bit now since signing the fight, just whatever clips I can find on YouTube. And, he looks tough, looks like he brings it. He's definitely a scrapper, likes to throw, likes to brawl a little bit, so we'll find out where your skill level's at. Yeah, so you've watched film on him. Do you normally watch film on your opponents before a fight? So I'm not big on watching film. I usually, when I get a fight, like right away, I'll go to YouTube or wherever and try to, watch a fight or two just so I can get a basic idea. Like I want to know, is he southpaw? Does he want to wrestle? Does he have an outstanding, certain strike or certain submission hold? But I don't like to get too in-depth with it. I'll let, if my coaches want to, really break things down and game plan, that's better. But I found that so much happens in a fight that you don't know, and so much of it is on the fly that sometimes going in with too much of an idea can backfire on you, and because ideas never work out that well. So I like to have, little things I want to do, but for the most part, I'm just, ready to fight. Yeah. Do you train any certain skills for an opponent if you see something, or is it more just something you keep in your mind? Yeah, for sure. So, like, depending on, their style, their stance, and things like that, there's always certain tools or strikes that I think will land better. So I like to keep that in my mind, and I'll train those and, rep out certain sequences that I think I'll see in the fight for sure, but nothing I I just don't. I try not to get too locked down on like this is how it's going to go because, as you know, that's not always how it goes.
Chaos in there.
Yeah, and especially you hit him and maybe that lights something in him and he goes crazy, or you get hit, you got hurt. You know, you never know what variables are going to come. So.
Do you find that you fight emotionally, or do you try to rein that in and control it? I know, for instance, Mike Perry is pretty proud of the fact, the UFC fighter is pretty proud of the fact that he does fight emotionally. Meanwhile, you see things like Cody Garbrandt's recent outing where he gets emotional and technique goes out the window and it eventually leads to him getting knocked out. Do you find that fighting with emotion is beneficial to you, or is that something you try to block out?
Yeah, I've never really it's never been like emotion with me before fights. Like at weigh-ins, stare-downs, I get a little emotional. I like to, talk some trash and get in people's faces sometimes. But once a fight starts, I've never really felt like that emotional part. I'm always in there like trying to win, but it's never like, man, fuck this guy. Once the fight starts, it's just more of like figuring out what I'm going to do to win. And so for me, emotions just have never really played a huge part in me once I start fighting.
I think it's a good thing. Some people you see, like you were speaking to, you get hit in the face and something switches and they get aggressive, technique gets a little bit sloppier.
Yeah. It depends. I mean, there's some guys, though, that the only reason they are what they are is because they thrive off of emotion, and they fight angry or they fight, whatever emotion it is that draws the best out of them. But I think for every person it's different. So, yeah. So
what does pre-fight ritual look like for you then? Are you focusing on the task at hand? Are you focused on nerves? What does it look like?
Yeah, so I try to just, play out what's going to happen. Try to see different outcomes in my head. You know what I mean? Like, so usually the first thing that comes to my head is, me winning, but then I try to, force myself to think about, the bad things, the obstacles I can run through, just so I'm kind of mentally ready for what's in front of me. So I try to just do kind of a mental checklist of all the things that could happen, what could go wrong, what could go right, and that way I'm just kind of, nothing shocks me in there.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're big on visualization. Do you go in the ring before the fight and feel things out? Yeah,
I always like to go in the ring for a number of reasons. One, it's always nice to feel how the canvas feels because there's different canvases. Sometimes they're slippy, sometimes they're sticky, and you want to see how the cage feels with the bounce. And like a big thing is the bottom of the cage. There's certain bottoms where you can fit your foot in, and it's like, all right, I know if he gets me against the cage, I have a good hold here, and or if I have him on the cage, I know his foot can get stuck here well, so it's going to be harder to take down. So just little things like that, actual technical things with the surface you're fighting on, I think is important to at least see before you fight. Yeah. And then just feeling in there and getting an idea of what it's going to look like, even though usually when you're in there the stands are empty and everything, but it's good to see that environment before you're in it.
That's such an interesting aspect that you mentioned there of thinking about how the bottom of the ring or the cage is.
Yeah.
And you're speaking to if there's a gap between the pad itself that you're standing on and the fence?
Yeah, so sometimes there will be some cages they'll have a big, almost circular pad along the bottom. And when there's something like that, you can really dig a foot in there. So it's hard if you push me up against the cage, I know I can dig my foot in there. You're going to have a hard time lifting me or pulling me out. Sometimes cages are just flat, where it's just the cage to the canvas. And it's nice to know there because sometimes there's a big dip. And where same thing, your foot can get stuck all the way. Or sometimes they're strong and there's no real kind of extra grip. So just little things that people don't really think about, but it's definitely a little thing to
insight into
see.
A veteran technique.
Yeah.
Very cool. So how's camp been going for this fight?
Camp's been great. I actually I took this fight on about 2.5 weeks notice, I think. I was trying to get on this card. I know Ed Soares, who's the promoter of LFA. He was the promoter of RFA back in the day. So I was bugging my manager all for about 6 weeks. I was because Ed always liked me, thinks I'm a really exciting fighter. So I was always good, remind Ed that he likes me and, get me on this. And so they were trying, but nothing worked out. And then I guess they had a fight fall out. So they re-offered. They're like, hey, we got a spot now. You want it? And I was like, of course I want it. Let's go. So here we are.
Beautiful. And what does a 2.5 week fight camp look like?
One thing about me is I've always just taken fights, and I'm a big believer in just always being ready. When I was younger, I used to drink and eat like an asshole a little bit more, so it would be a little bit tougher. But now I've been in the game so long, and I'm kind of always ready. I'm always in shape. Like the fight I took in November, I took a 5 days notice, flew to Czech Republic and fought, a 3-round fight and felt great. I try to just be ready, and then so like 2.5 weeks, all I do is I just amp it up for a week. The little things I maybe wasn't doing, I just do. Spar a little bit harder that last week, and the intensity just kind of jumps up. But other than that, I mean, there's not a ton I'm going to change in 2.5 weeks. I'm not going to like teach myself a bunch of new skills. So it's more just making sure my lungs are there and I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what does the weight cut look like going in then 2.5 weeks out?
Yeah, so that's another thing. That's where like I've gotten a lot better at. Before I would blow up in between fights. I really think mainly just because when I was younger, I would party a lot more. So every weekend I'd go out and drink with my buddies for 2 or 3 nights, and it's an easy way to pack on unnecessary weight. Now, except for rare occasions, I don't really drink much, and I don't. Which also leads to me not eating copious amounts of junk food, right?
Absolutely.
So they play hand in hand. And so that alone kind of just keeps my weight down a little bit more. So I try to keep to where, like this is a perfect example, where like I can always make weight comfortably within 3 weeks is what I want to be. As long as I'm there, I'm good, because then I know that if I get an opportunity on 1 week, I can, I'll make it.
Yeah.
If I get an opportunity in 3 weeks, it'll be comfortable.
Okay.
But I always want to be kind of right there.
So what you mentioned that 2.5 weeks of training, really for the first week we're just ramping it up, and then the last week and a half I imagine you're taking a little bit easier because the fight's approaching.
Right.
What does the difference between training look like inside of camp and outside of camp?
So I think mostly it's just mental. So for me, I'm always training. Like I'm always at practice. For the most part, unless like something comes up, like my girlfriend wants to go on a date or something, and like I skip a night practice here and there when I'm out of camp. I train 2 to 3 times every day, regardless of where I'm at. But so like the change is more like I know I have a fight, so I'm like pushing even more. So like when you're out of camp, and it's sparring day, I'll get my 3 rounds, but maybe I'm just, chilling a little bit in some of them and working some certain stuff, but I'm not necessarily, pushing, like crazy. Here and there I will, but, not every practice. But once that fight comes, it's more just like, all right, let's go. Let's turn it up.
Yeah, and so 2 to 3 week fight camp, the last week and a half, what is that for you?
Shorter, I just like to do like shorter duration workouts, just because I'm also at that point I'll be like, losing some weight, so my calories will be depleted a little bit. So I just don't like to do like long 2-hour practices, where I'm drilling for an hour, technique, drill, then we go live. Like I just like to get it,
It's tough to get through that long of a practice on reduced calories.
Right. So I'll do more like shorter, more intensity. Like like when I'm eating more, like I really like to run. A lot of people don't like to run, but I'm a weirdo who likes to run. So like when I'm outside of camp and I'm just chilling, like I love to go on 2-hour runs, 1.5 runs and just chill. But then like now for this, last 2 weeks, I've been doing a lot of like shorter 20, 30-minute runs where I'm just, running at a high pace, just because that way it's a little easier on the mind to not spread out. And that's more of what I need in this last week is that short intensity. So just things like that. And then like, my practice just won't be as long. Really, it's just they'll be more intense, but a little bit shorter. Yeah.
So a normal week of training outside of camp. Mm-hmm. You mentioned you're training 2 to 3 times a day, which is quite a bit. So what does that break down to each day, Monday through? Is it Monday through Saturday? Is it Monday through Friday? Yeah.
So 2 to 3 Monday through Friday, and then Saturday I usually always try to get one good practice, whether it's just some mitt work, some grappling, or just like a long distance run, and then Sundays. It's kind of always just like how I feel. I'll either do nothing and just hang out, or I'll go hit a nice long run if I feel like it, because that's just something I like to do. But Monday through Friday, the way it looks like for me is every day with Elevation Fight Team, we have a practice at 1 or 2 p.m. For our like MMA team practice. So I'm always at that practice. Monday's wrestling, Tuesday we spar, Wednesday we do some technique, Thursday we do MMA grappling, and then Friday is small glove sparring. So I'm always at those. And then usually 3 days a week, I do a kickboxing practice in the morning. I go to Dwayne Ludwig's Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning, and I'll train there. And Tuesday and Thursday, I try to get my strength and conditioning in the morning, so I'll lift and do that. And then at night, I try to grapple. So I'm trying to at least get some form of grappling and some form of striking in every day.
That's great. So true mixed martial artist. And you're getting a lot of looks there. I mean, you're saying that you're working with not only Elevation Fight Team, which a lot of the members go to Easton, but you're also working with Dwayne Bang's headquarters gym, really.
Yeah.
So getting a lot of different looks, and then also your grappling aspect of things.
Yeah, that's been one of the great things about being out here. Back before where I was at in Chicago, I was with Jeff Curran, and I love Jeff. I love that gym back there. I missed him a lot, but I was there my whole career, and it was always just right there. And, sometimes we had a lot of guys. We had a big team, but then the last couple of years we had a smaller team. So it was, every day the same guys, which is, I had great coaches, good training partners. But now out here, I get so many different looks every day. I mean, I was talking to my brother because we were talking on the phone the other day. He's like, how many gyms do you go to? And I had to, count in my head. I go to like 5-6 different gyms, throughout the week where I'm training. And it's awesome. Just getting, not only knowledge from other people, but getting that live action against different bodies and a different body. I mean, I grapple with somebody new every other day for the most part, which is huge.
Yeah, and you're also working with the likes of Justin Gagey, Corey Sandhagen, Austin Hubbard recently signed from LFA to the UFC.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that gives you confidence in your performances as well, as far as training with these guys that are killers and proven, to be elite in the UFC, and they're all coming out of the same gym that you also train at?
Yeah, it's definitely awesome. So I've been really, since kind of moving out here, me and Corey Sandhagen have become really close training partners. We're pretty much every day we're training together. We do most of our sparring together. Like when he was getting ready for this Lineker fight, me and him were putting a lot of rounds and a lot of time in.
A phenomenal performance that he just put on too. Arguing for top 5 in the UFC at this point.
Incredible. I've trained with a lot of really high-level guys in my career. It's been a pretty long time. And I've had the pleasure of being the sparring partner for Pat Kern when he was the Bellator world champion, Mark Homnick when he challenged Jose Aldo for the title.
Wow.
Jeff Curran throughout most of his career, and a bunch of other guys. And Cory is, to me, the best mixed martial artist I've trained with. And I am very happy with the situation I'm in to be able to train with him every day. He pushes it, which is incredible, keeps my drive up, and he's just so talented that it's been awesome. It's probably been the best thing about being out here is that I've been such close of a training partner of his.
Yeah, great opportunity and certainly high praise from you.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you need to focus, or do you focus on certain skills at this point in your career as far as development?
Yeah, I think like there's so much to be learned. Like plenty of days feel like I don't know what the hell I'm doing. You know what I mean? And it's crazy. I've been training for 12 years now, and I'm, always learning something new. Like it's a never ending, a new way to finish a choke, a new way to stand up. And you know what I mean? There's just little details, and everybody has their own detail or something that works. So I think I'm just, trying to learn something new every day. And, if your mind's open and you're working hard, there's always so much to be learned.
Yeah, it's a journey, right? Martial arts.
For sure.
Yeah, and one big thing that stuck with me throughout my martial arts journey was when my coach gave me my black belt originally in kickboxing, and he said, this is really just the beginning. Yeah. This is the beginning of your journey. It's not an end point by any means. This is where the learning really begins.
Yeah, and it's so true because it's crazy. I've learned more in the last year than I probably have probably every year. I would probably say that because every year, you learn so much.
I believe it.
It's crazy.
And you mentioned that you're training 2 to 3 times a day. You're working with Dwayne Bang's school. You're working at Easton. You're with the Elevation Fight Team. What about as far as strength and performance? Yeah,
so I go to Landau Performance. I train with Aaron Porter. I try to go there at least twice a week when I can, 3 times a week. I've always said that strength and conditioning comes second. If I have a choice, like I can either wrestle and fight or I can lift weights, I'm going to wrestle and fight because I have to go wrestle and fight.
Skills pay the bills.
Yeah, but it's been awesome over there. Aaron's great. I try to do my conditioning with him, really pushing, been trying to lift a little bit more so I get a little stronger. But yeah, it's nice. And it's also nice to kind of break up training too with that. Like you're so used to just, bumping heads, colliding, grabbing, wrestling, that it's nice to just move some weights around or run on a treadmill. It's like a welcome break, even though it's still a super hard workout, which is nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and Lance Wright was on the last episode of this show. He's also at Elevation, and I believe also works with Aaron Porter.
Yeah,
and he mentioned Aaron is a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, so he understands what you guys need and what to develop as far as strength and performance to be sports specific.
Yeah, which is cool. It's always cool to have somebody who knows at least what you're kind of doing a little bit. It helps for sure.
And what about recovery? Do you like to do yoga? What does recovery look like for you?
Yeah, so I try to stretch a lot. It's funny. Before I had the worst flexibility. I could not touch my toes literally my whole life. I never stretched. I just didn't have it. And then like 4 years ago, I broke my hand in a fight. So I was in a cast for like 8 weeks, and all I was doing was running. I was like, man, what can I do? And then I don't remember what triggered me, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to do the splits before this cast is off. So I started stretching. I was stretching for an hour and a half every day just because it's something to do. And then ever since then, I've really gotten big in stretching. I don't stretch as long anymore because I can do other things. But so I try to stretch every night, watching TV. I sit, in front of the couch and just stretch, or on the wall. So I do a lot of stretching. I like to go get massages. I would like to get more, but they're not as cheap
They're
as...
expensive here.
Yeah, I actually, me and my girlfriend just went up to Vail last weekend and got some massages, and it was great. Perfect for recovery. So I like to do that. And then I work with Derek McBride at Fixed Performance Medicine, and he does some stretching. He does fascial stretching.
Yeah,
which
I've heard of it.
Yeah, I don't know the science behind it, but it feels good. It's just stretching, kind of opening everything up.
It's kind of like combining massages and stretching almost.
Yeah, and it's really nice. So I do that, and then he's got those Normatec compression boots for the arms and legs over there. So I try to go over there once a week and get loosened up, and that's helped too. But yeah, it's been nice.
So you have this aspect of recovery through Fixed Performance.
Yeah.
Your occasional massages and stretching. You train with the Elevation Fight Team, sometimes at Bang. So what do the expenses look like to be able to do all that?
Yeah. So fighting is not the cheapest endeavor to get into. I mean, it's there's different memberships at every gym. So I pay to be a part of Elevation Fight Team. I pay to train at Dwayne Ludwig's. I pay to train at Landau's. So there's a lot of, every aspect of it has a cost to it. And that's just what it is. And I think a lot of guys take shortcuts there. They're like, well, I don't want to pay that $100. And trust me, I get it. I have had plenty of times where, I couldn't buy dinner because especially when you're not making that much money, when I was younger, but you have to sacrifice a lot to do it. So if that means going to get a job, go get a job. I've talked to guys in the past, younger guys who are up and coming, well, I got a sponsor, he pays for my training, so that's it, but I can only train here because that's all he'll pay. And I'm like, well, then go get a job. Either that or you're just wasting your time, you're wasting his money. Why? So I've tried at least to never shortcut that. Any training or recovery that I think is necessary, I do, and then I figure out how I get the money to pay for that.
It's worth it for you.
Yeah.
It's an investment in your career.
This is what I'm doing. Otherwise what? I'm just half-assing it for a half-ass result. I'm not going to get it.
That's a great perspective. Yeah. So when you're outside of this, we've spoken before, and you mentioned that you also have a day job. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
So I work. I actually have two different day jobs right now. I teach some group boxing classes at Compass Fitness in Denver, which is a really cool spot. They opened up, I think like last weekend was their first year anniversary. Great people over there. And I just run some cardio boxing classes over there with some bag work.
Are those group training or are they personal?
Group training. I also do some private training on the side, some one-on-ones, cool. Which is cool. That's really what I love to do. And then I also work part-time at Lululemon in the Cherry Creek Mall. So usually just on the weekends for the most part, maybe once during the week. But it works with my schedule, so I work over there Saturdays, Sundays, and helps to pay the bills that I need to pay.
Yeah, and you mentioned Lululemon specifically as a cool perk for employees?
Yeah, so they have a awesome benefit where it's called the Sweaty Pursuits. So they give, an allotted amount of money to use on working out in the community, which works out great for me because all I'm doing is working out. So I use that to help pay for some of my gym dues, which is great.
Yeah, a little bit of a subsidization almost.
For sure, yeah.
A subsidy.
That's nice.
So you mentioned, you're in fight camp right now, generally 2.5 weeks, but you stay fit year-round. You stay fight ready year-round so you can pick up a short notice fight.
Yeah.
If it comes up like this, a good opportunity.
Yeah.
LFA, local, Vail, Colorado, and a prominent feeder organization for the UFC. So certainly a great fight to put on the resume.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you find that the expenses are any different inside and outside of fight camp?
Yeah, like just because inside a fight camp, like I'm more willing to give up money and like if I want a massage, I go get a massage. If I, need any kind of recovery, I go pay for it. If I need food, really too, like because I'm super strict on my nutrition, so I'm buying the best stuff, more expensive meats and vegetables, and making sure I have the good stuff. So it gets more expensive for sure. And like when I'm outside of fight camp, I'm like, I want a massage. It's $50. I don't need a massage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when I'm in fight camp, like I got to fight in 3 weeks. I need a massage. Let's go get a massage. So it's definitely costs ramp up a little bit in fight camp. And also like when fight camp comes, I don't work as much, right? Like I got to fight camp. So it's like a double-headed sword, like my income's not coming in at the same, even though at the end I will, because I'll get, the payday from the fight, which will more than make up for that for the most part, hopefully. But like outside camp, I'll pick up some extra shifts. I'll teach more lessons because now like I don't need to be there all the time. If I get 2 in and I got time to work at night, like I'll go pick up a night shift and work some more. So yeah, for sure.
And do you utilize supplements inside or outside of training camp? So
I've never really been much of a supplement guy. The only thing I really take is I try to take BCAAs, but even that is like I'm not super strict on it. So like when I remember, then I do. But yeah, I've never really taken much. I try to like juice a little bit. I try to take shots of turmeric because I know that's good for your brain health, and I could use all of that. So that is like one thing I try to do. But really, I've never been much about supplements, and maybe I should look more into it because I'm sure they help a lot. But I feel like I can get most of what I need from eating correctly.
Right.
So I try to do that.
So just eat healthily inside and outside of camp, and more specifically inside of camp, eating clean.
Yeah, definitely more specifically inside of camp.
Sure.
I do my best to outside of camp, and for the most part I do. But I'm like I'm an all or nothing type of person. It's just like how my personality goes. So like going back to like drinking, if I decide to drink, like I'm not gonna have 3 or 4 beers. Like I'll probably be out, all night, and I'll have as many beers as they'll serve me. And like same thing, like if I'm eating bad and I'm gonna have ice cream, I'm gonna have a pint of ice cream. Like so.
I fall into that.
I try to. I'm working on getting a more healthy balance there.
Sure.
But what are you gonna do?
Well, I think it is a form of balance.
Yeah, for sure.
Because when you're cutting weight, you're being very disciplined. You have to be strict on that diet.
Yeah.
So maybe the balance comes in also being able to be a little free outside of camp.
Yeah, it's funny because like people like my mom, my girlfriend, they'll be like, you're like the most disciplined person when like you have to be disciplined, and I think I am. Like I can, if you told me all you can eat is a grape for every day for the next 10 days, I would do it. Like I'll be disciplined, I'll figure out a way, I'll do it. But when I don't have any limitations, I can't control myself. And it's like, I'll eat till I'm sick. And it's like, man, how do you have those two like complete opposite mindsets? And it's like, well, I don't know. When I need things to be done, I can do it. But if I don't need them to be done, you're not going to make me. Yeah. Right?
So what costs are there? What expenses are there associated with an upcoming fight that people may not see?
The biggest thing is medical costs. So, like Colorado is actually, it's awesome fighting out here. Their medical costs are easy. All you have is like blood work, and you only need it once a year, which is great. But every state commission has their own like guidelines of what you need to fight. So like a good example is I was gonna fight in March up in Canada, and like 2 weeks before the fight they gave me all the medicals I needed, and I needed to get for them an MRI, an EKG, blood work, a physical, and something else, which is countless amounts of money. It's extremely expensive. And that fight ended up falling through, which was good because I didn't have to get all those medicals. But like that's the biggest cost. Like something like blood work is usually around $100. A physical is usually around $100. But if you have to get anything past that, it can really get expensive. And like a lot of guys don't have health insurance because you're only working part-time. You're trying to make this fight career happen. So it can be hard to pay for that. So medical expenses is the biggest unforeseen thing. And then the other thing is like food. You know, you don't think about it, but like even when I'm eating less, it's not like cheap. Like I'm cutting weight and I'm eating less. You think, you know, he's not eating much, it should be cheaper, but not really, because, you know, I'm buying the quality things and the kind of food that's more expensive. I'm not buying, you know, the $3 box of cereal. Right. So food and medicals are like the kind of unforeseen costs.
Yeah.
I think.
And so the EKG in Canada, how do people afford to fight in Canada?
Most of them don't. And those Canadians get free health care, so they got it easy. I think that's a big deal there. So, but I don't know. I know like it was going to go through, and my management was saying they work with a company where they'd be able to source us some, you know, decently priced medical, so I'd be able to afford it. But yeah, it's tough. Even though like back in Chicago, Illinois has a really strict commission, and they require all the same stuff. The only thing is like Canada required all of it within like 30 or 60 days of the fight, which is crazy. Like in the U.S., Nevada, Illinois, I'm sure there's some other states require like the EKG, require the MRI, but for all of those, it's 5 years. So like every 5 years, you need to re-up them.
That's not terribly unreasonable.
Not terribly unreasonable, and honestly, probably a good thing.
Yep.
Like you should be getting your brain checked. We're getting punched in the head.
Very true. Right?
So like I mean, I can't be mad at that, and I'll happily do that once every 5 years, but I don't want to do it every 2 months. Right? So like, that's a big thing, is like where you fight matters a lot in terms of expenses and how much you're actually going to make.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned that you had to get a knee surgery a year and a half or so ago.
Yeah.
So how did you handle that as far as health insurance or paying for it out of pocket? What did it look like?
So luckily at that time in my life, I did have health insurance, which was great.
How did you have it?
So how did I have it? I think it was through my dad's work. They had a program where I could like enroll in my own plan, and so I had that for a while. And then, so I had health insurance there, which saved that. But normally, like, you get, like, promotions will have insurance. Like, if you get hurt in a fight, you can work through their insurance. But that's also, like, a real pain. So when I broke my hand, like I was talking about earlier, I broke it in a fight. Luckily, at that time, I was younger, so I was still under my parents' insurance.
Right.
But I was trying to use, like, the fight insurance that I got from the promotion, and that was like trying to actually get that was really hard. It was like you had to have all these different all these things filled out. I was like, all right, forget it. I'll just use, you know, the insurance that I have, which is, you know, so you think you have insurance for the fight, but it's not as easy as like just like having a good actual insurance plan with a real job, you know. Yeah. But that's what it is.
So you go to these fights. This one's local here in Vail. Or do you plan to stay up there, or do you drive back same night? Yeah,
so I'll stay up there. They put us up in a hotel for Thursday and Friday night,
nice.
Which is great. That's always been a big thing. One of my favorite parts about fighting is staying somewhere. Like I really enjoy that. And like I used to, even back home. I mean, back in Chicago, I would fight in Chicago a decent amount. and which was only 45 minutes from where I lived. And so like I didn't have to get a hotel, but I would always like if the promotion wouldn't get me a hotel, I'd find one, and I would just book it on my own, because I think it's good to be out of your like environment. It allows you kind of be by yourself, kind of lets you feel the moment a little bit more. You know what I mean? Like if I'm just at home, waking up, eating breakfast at home like I do every day, you just don't feel the environment. And maybe like there could be something to be said that'd be good, like just have it like another normal day. It's another normal day, but it's not. I mean, it's a fight, and I want it to be something. Like I don't want my fight days to be another normal day. You know what I mean? I don't do this so that the day I fight is another normal day in my life. I do this because I live for that day. Like the day of the fight, I live for that. That's why I do this. So like I don't want that to be just another day at home. I want that to be, I'm staying out here. It doesn't have to be something nice, but I'm staying here. I'm up here for a reason, So like that's a big thing for me.
It's part of the experience.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. So I'd imagine if you have to travel up to Vail, you're staying there, your coaches and corners are coming with you, and outside of Colorado as well, other states, or you mentioned fighting in Czechoslovakia, other countries.
Yeah.
How do you get your corners there? Do you have to pay for that out of pocket, or is that covered by the promotion?
So the way it normally works is the promotion will pay for you and one corner.
Okay.
Pretty much across the board, that's how it goes. So if you want to bring anyone extra, you almost always have to pay out of pocket for them. So like when I went to the Czech Republic, they flew me and my corner out there and put us up in a hotel, so it's all paid. But like you always have more than one coach, and it's nice to have more than one guy in your corner.
Yeah.
So
usually you see 2 to 3, right?
Right. Yeah. So like even if you think like even UFC fights, everyone for the most part has 3 people in their corner. The UFC doesn't pay to bring 3 people; they pay to bring 1. So everyone else you're paying out of pocket for, right? And normally they also only give you 1 hotel room, so like you and your coach share. And some guys don't like that. They're like, I don't want to share a room, so now I got to also get another room for you. And if I got 3 coaches, we're all grown men. I mean, I'll share a bed, but a lot of guys, they're like, look, we don't need to cram 4 people in this hotel room.
Yeah, busy bathroom.
Yeah, so there's a lot of, like, that's an expense that you don't see either. Yeah, for sure.
And are the coaches or corners generally compensated for coming out there and being in your corner?
Yeah, I mean, you should pay your coach. I know that, like, again, like, people get very stingy with money, and I get it, right? Like, we don't make that much a lot of times, but coaches, that's their job, right? They're taking time out of their day to be there with you, or especially if they're traveling. So, yeah, you should always work something out with your coach about how much you're going to pay them, or figure it out, or just, pay them a fair share, which is I always try to do. I've always tried to, make sure I pay out like I need to, because I also know, like, I've been the coach plenty, and for me, like, I'm a fighter, so when I go coach somebody, like, I don't actually need to get paid. Like, I love to do that right now. Like, when the day comes that I am a full-time coach, if I'm flying around the world, better give me something, you know what I mean? But, like, still, like, you should, give them something.
Yeah.
I think it's nice, yeah.
So outside of fighting, outside of preparing for fight, I know you said that you stay pretty active and pretty fight ready, but do you have any hobbies outside of fighting that get you a little distracted from time to time, or provide more balance?
Yeah, I really like to go hiking, right? I like to, like, living out in Colorado now, it's awesome. Like, I love to go to the mountains. I love to camp. I'm hoping, like, this summer I go camping a good 10 times. Like, I just like being out there, with nothing. So that, I would say, is my main hobby, but I'm just not very good with having hobbies. I'm a very, like, obsessive person. Like, if I started trying to play basketball as a hobby, I'd be trying to make the NBA in a week or two. So, like running is probably my biggest hobby, which is great, because, like,
it's a good hobby to have in the sport.
And so for the most part, like, the way I treat running, it was funny, I was just talking to Sean about this last week, because he's been running now lately. Like, in fight camp it changed a little bit, but for the most part with running, like, I never, like, set out a distance. I never track my distance. I never track my time, because then I get too competitive. Like, if I start tracking, I'm like, all right, last week I ran 10 miles in an hour and a half. I bet I can do it in an hour 20, you know what I mean? And then it turns from, like, being my time to relax and unwind and just think, into more of me just pushing, right? So I like to use running as, like, just like a way to relax. I think it's the easiest way to it's so hard like nowadays to get away from stuff. You know what I mean? Everything's in our face, phones, TV. Like when I'm out on the road or on a trail just running, like I don't bring my phone, I don't bring music. I'm just there, right? So like that's why I like running. It gives me 2 hours apiece. So I try not to get too overly competitive with it, because otherwise it'll turn that piece into more of mayhem like everything else, right?
Yeah. So take me back to the beginning of your career then. So you were an amateur for about 2 years, and at this time you're living in Illinois?
Yeah. So I was living in Crystal Lake, Illinois. It's a suburb, like 45 minutes outside of Chicago. It's funny story how I started fighting. So I've always really been into fighting, boxing, fighting. I just always thought it was cool. I always thought I would be good at it. I was never very like confrontational. Like I think I'm pretty like nice and easygoing, like get along well with people. So like growing up, I never got in a ton of fights because like that wasn't my personality to be like, you know, yelling at people, right? Like even now, like people try to fight me, like I'll be cool. I'm like, why? What's the point in us? You know what I mean? Like there's no need. So, but I always, like while I was like that, I always like, well, I would, you know, go to fights outside of the schoolyard, you see these kids fight, but man, I would fucking hurt those kids. Okay, they didn't fight me. So then in high school, when first time was in 8th grade, me and my best friend, Brian, we decided we would fight each other and charge all our friends to come watch. So we put on those like rubber like bag gloves where there's no padding. They're just like rubber like mittens. And when my buddy's backyard, we had some spotlights on, and we just threw down for 15 minutes. And then I went and slept over at his house. We woke up the next morning, both of us just like bruises all over. And his mom's like, "What the hell happened?" And we're like, "Oh, it's all right. We fought each other." But then after that, I was like, all right, this is cool. I really like this. And then the next year, I got to high school, and we were playing football. And the linebacker on the varsity team, this huge dude, his name was Chase. He was massive, just like could bench 315 pounds, was a monster. And he was talking about fighting, and you know, I jokingly said, you know, I would kick his ass. And then it turned into him being like, "Oh, you could never." And I was like, all right, well, let's do it then. Let's put on boxing gloves and we'll fight. So we set up a ring in my buddy's basement, and we fought, and I made him quit after 2 rounds. And after that, I was like, cool, man, this is what I'm going to do. So I started fighting just anybody that would in high school. Like it was always with boxing gloves, and most of them were like guys on the football team, big dudes. You know, it was always, because I was small, I was 150 pounds like I am now, and I was always fighting these guys that were 200 some pounds, but I was winning every time. I loved it. And then finally, I had a buddy who was like, "Hey man, you know there's a gym like in our town where these guys fight professionals?" I was like, "No shit." So I walked in, and I remember I went in with my mom because I needed her to like sign me up and pay for it. I was like 15. And I walked in, and it was Jeff Kern's gym, and I saw a picture of Jeff fighting, and there were guys sparring in the ring. And I'm walking through the gym, and there's all these like posters from all over the world of Jeff fighting.
The smell.
Yeah, and I was like, I looked at my mom like, "Oh yeah, that's what I'm gonna do." And she's like, "What? No." And I was like, "This is it." I walked in the office. I was like, "I'll sign however long. Like, this is what I'm gonna do." And he's like, "Well, what do you want?" I was like, "Oh, I want to do whatever's on that poster, like 100%." And then that was it. I was hooked. And I really took up boxing. Like stand-up fighting came really natural to me. I remember the first time I sparred, I broke my nose. I was bleeding all over, but I was just going after everybody. Probably why I got my nose broken. And so then right from there, I first went to the gym when I was 16. I was still like playing high school sports at the time. So like I was there for a couple months, and I had football season, and I like could barely make it in to train. And then after that, I was like, all right, this is it. This is all I'm going to do. And I just dedicated all my time there. I started right after I graduated high school is when I started actually competing. And so I started boxing, and boxing was cool. I was fighting, so like amateur boxing is really big in Chicago, but it's all like down in the city. So we would always travel down to the city, and they didn't like us that much because we were an MMA school from out in the suburbs, and you know, boxing's really political, and like, so as an amateur, I never want to fight unless I knock the guy out. Like, if it was going to decision, we knew I was losing, which, you know, made for, some sucky times, but also a lot of fun. Like, we'd go in the third round, like, listen, you've been fucking this guy up, but we got to take him out.
Yeah.
Like, all right, let's take him out. So that was cool. So I started boxing right out of high school. I had 3 boxing matches, and then I entered the Golden Gloves, which is like the prestigious amateur boxing tournament. And I fought 4 times in 3 weeks. I made it to the finals. I didn't knock the guy out, so I lost a decision in the finals, which was a real bummer. And then 2 weeks after that, so right after that fight, they're like, there's an MMA show, right down the street. Do you want to fight? I was like, yeah, let's fight.
How long had you been training at this time?
About a year and a half.
A year and a half, and you're already 7 fights into your boxing career.
Yeah. And I was like, actually, it was probably less than that. I think, well, it was a year and a half but I took some time off because I was playing football. And so, like, there were some spurts in between where I wasn't really training. So then, like, 2 weeks after the Golden Gloves, I was like, yeah, I'll fight. So I took my first MMA fight, and I was fighting. I got to the arena, and I already had, 7 boxing matches or whatever it was. But it was a different feel, man. I was so nervous. I was like, fuck, man. Like, what, And it was weird. I don't know why I was so nervous, but I was, and I like couldn't pinpoint it. I was like, man, well, like I'm not afraid to get hurt. Like fucking try and hurt me. Like that's fine. And but I had this like a lot of nerves. And then my opponent came up to me, and I was 19-year-old kid at that time, and my opponent was like 45. He had a kid that was like 14 that was as big as me. He's like, hey man, good luck tonight. And I was like, oh shit. And that just like made it worse. And I don't know, dude, I was I remember I like walked to there was like a 7-Eleven across from the venue. My brother was there with me. I walked to the 7-Eleven, and I just remember looking like, man, I should just fucking run. Fuck this. Maybe it's not what I want to do. And then I obviously sucked it up and I fought, and I armbarred the guy in a minute. And I was hooked. It was great. It was funny though. Everyone like from the gym, because I was a boxer, I was a stand-up guy. I grappled. I trained grappling, but that was in no way my strength. I was like, what the hell was that? Where'd you learn how to do that? I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, so what made you decide to take that challenge on and say, hey, I'll go MMA?
Well, I wanted to fight. That was always my like goal was, because I saw Jeff fighting MMA. It was just I took to boxing, and it was easier to get fights. Like there was amateur boxing fights in Chicago all the time. And it was like a nice way to get started before, get your feet wet.
But you were training jiu-jitsu the whole time, or training grappling?
Yeah. So like, I was always training jiu-jitsu and grappling, but I was always, especially in the beginning, not training it as hard as I was training stand-up. Yeah. Which is, I should have trained it harder, but also I'm a really great stand-up fighter, I think, and that's probably why. But so then I took that fight, and right after that I was like, yeah, that's it. I'm in. Like that feeling of winning, it doesn't change. It's crazy. Like I fought on some big stages. I fought on some very small stages. When you win, there's nothing like it, right? And it doesn't matter the stage. Like I fought in some shitty dive bars. I win and I'm king of the world. You know what I mean? I fought in some giant stadiums. I win and I'm king of the world. Like it doesn't matter. So after that fight, then that next year was awesome. Probably one of the most fun years I've had. I was fighting a couple times a month.
How old are you at this time?
19.
You said 19, living the dream, chasing the professional career, but this is amateur fights?
This is still amateur fights, yeah. So 19 and 20, I was just fighting all the time. I had 20 boxing matches, 11 MMA fights, so 30-some fights in 2 years. It was awesome. I loved it. Like, I was just, everywhere. And I was taking fights all the time. My family owned a sandwich shop in our town, and the promoter of the organization is called XFO. He's, like, really close with our gym, Team Curran back home, and so we were always close to him, and he would come in for lunch. And I remember he came in one day, I was working, it was a Wednesday. He's like, hey man, we had a guy drop out, you wanna fight this Friday? And I was like, yeah, all right. It was Wednesday. I was like, what weight? He's like, what do you weigh now? I was like, not anything light. He's like, how about 155? I was like, sure. So I jumped in and fought, and that was awesome. Like, I was just always fighting, and it was so cool. And then I actually took my pro debut on short notice. There was 3 weeks notice.
How far are you into your career at this point?
So this is training wise, what, 3 years?
3 years in, and you're making your pro debut in MMA.
In MMA, yeah. Okay. It was a chance to fight on Bellator.
Wow, in your pro debut.
Yeah. I remember really vividly because I remember I had just turned 21 at this point, like weeks ago. So I was at the peak phase of being a 21-year-old enjoying turning 21, right? I was drinking and partying. And so I was in no type of weight that I should be in. I just remember Jeff Curran walking up to me. He goes, what do you weigh? And the second he said that, I was like, no one asks what you weigh unless there's a good opportunity ahead. So I was like, I don't know, do like 150. When in reality, I was like closer to 170. He's like, all right, you want to fight in 3 weeks? Bellator just called asking. They need someone to fight this kid. And I was like, yeah, I'm in. So, I mean, it was a hell of a way. I had 3 weeks to lose like 35 pounds.
But it's the opportunity that you've been waiting for, that you've been working for the last 3 years. Yeah.
So I took it. Weight cut wasn't the most fun, but I felt great in the fight. I ended up getting choked in the end of the second round. I threw a head kick and I slipped. First time I think I tried to throw a switch head kick in a fight. Probably the last time too. I threw it and I fell and he jumped on my back and choked me, and it was devastating. But it was an awesome experience. It was a cool time. And so from there, it went on. After that, a couple months later, I took my second pro fight in an outdoor show.
So that was just a one-fight contract with Bellator?
It was just a one-fight deal, yeah.
So was the fight like in your local area, or what got you the opportunity on Bellator for your first pro fight?
Yeah, it was in Hammond, Indiana, which is like right outside of Chicago. Like it was in a casino where they do shows at. So they were just the guy that I fought was also making his pro debut, but he was a really highly touted amateur. Was gonna like sell the place out from.
So trying to fill the venue essentially with local fighters.
Right. Yeah, and so I got that opportunity and I took it.
Did you have a manager at that time?
Jeff, my coach, was managing me at that time. I think maybe right before that fight or right after, I signed with Sucker Punch Entertainment.
So fairly early in your career then.
Yeah. So Sucker Punch, they're really big in the management now. They manage champions.
UFC, Bellator, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, Brian Butler is the head of Sucker Punch. He's the best in the business. He's awesome. He's the man. But when he first started, I think it was Jens Pulver convinced him to give it a try, like in this business. He was in the digital ad world. And so he tried it out, and then he managed Jens for a little bit, but was kind of like not disinterested in it. And then my coach, Jeff Curran, they met, and he told him like, hey, you're good at this, like do this, and convinced him to like, make it happen. And so I was, one of Jeff's main guys, so we all kind of signed with Brian right away, right when Brian started. So I was one of his first, in that first kind of wave of guys that he had, which is cool to see now because, like, I'm still with him and he's fucking all over the place. So, yeah, I signed with him right away, which was cool because then that actually he was able to get me some really good opportunities early in my career, which is cool. So
you do find it was beneficial getting a manager that early?
Yeah, for sure. For me, it was, yeah. I mean, it depends on what you have going. Like, I had Jeff was my coach and manager.
Right.
And, like, Brian was co-managing me. So, like, I was already going to have a manager for the most part. And it just helped because, like, who they knew. Like, Jeff, if you don't know who Jeff Curran is, he's fought for every single promotion there is in the world. If there's a big promotion, he's fought for them. And so he knows everybody. And so, like, he helped Brian meet a bunch of people. So with them two, like, I just had so many connections that I wouldn't have had. You know what I mean? Like, it would have taken me so long to, like, get an organization to know who I was. You know what I mean? I'd have to go 8-0 and then be like, hey, RFA, can I have a fight? Whereas I went 0-1, won my second pro fight. I was 1-1, and then I got signed to the RFA.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Which was great.
And RFA is a part of the organization that is now LFA that you fight on this Friday.
Yes, correct, right.
So how many times did you then go fight for RFA? And this is, so after fight 2 in your career, 1-1 as a pro, you signed with RFA, which again, a prominent regional promotion.
Yeah, it was. So my first fight with RFA, I was kind of brought in. I mean, I wouldn't say to lose, but I wasn't, like, favorite. I fought this guy, Jerry Shapiro, really good grappler, high-level black belt. He was 1-0 at the time, but a really decorated amateur out in Vegas. And the fight was in Vegas, and he was, like, selling the place out. So same kind of deal as that Bellator fight. And they brought me out to fight him, and it was it was so long ago now, but still one of the most memorable fights in my career. Like he's first round we were moving, and he stung me with a right hand, and then shot and took me down, and he mounted me, and for about a minute and a half was like landing elbows, had a deep arm triangle, cut me open. I mean, nobody would have bet on me to win that fight after the first round for sure. But I came out in the second round and I knocked him out.
Wow.
It was awesome. Best part of that though, he had sold that place out. My mom and dad flew out, and my best buddy Brian, the one who I fought when I was 13, he flew out. So I had those three people in the stands, and he had everybody else. And after I knocked him out, they stormed the cage. One of the promoters, I think it was Mark Beery.
Wow.
Maybe got punched by one of the guys, and I'm just arms up in the middle of the cage, just taking it all in. But that was a wild time. And then from there, I fought 3 more times with them. I went 3-1, and it was really cool.
Very nice.
Yeah,
quite the experience, I could imagine.
For sure, yeah. And I was still only 21, and I was in Vegas for the first time, and I just won in a huge comeback victory. So I had a lot of fun that night.
Yeah.
For sure.
I bet.
Yeah.
So what do you think the biggest challenge so far in your career has been? A career like this is nothing but challenges. I've had a lot of losses. I have 9 losses, which is a lot more than anybody ever wants. So I think my challenge has just been pushing forward and never allowing defeat to defeat me. You know what I mean? There's just I know how good I am. I know what I deserve in this sport and where I'm going to get in this sport. And so I've never let a loss define me. And the biggest I think I've gotten in my way a lot in my career. I think if I let Brian, my manager, run my career more, I probably would be in a much better spot now. You know what I mean? I probably would have 12 less fights. Right.
But I'd be in a much better spot. Instead of being an 11-9, maybe I'd be 8-2, right?
Sure, but you wouldn't be a fighter if you didn't have the mentality that I'm going to be the best and I'll fight anyone.
And that's never going to be me. That's just not if you know me, I do not do well without a fight. When I don't have a fight, all I'm complaining about is how I need to get a fight. And there's never been a time in my career. So, what could be considered a big mistake I made, I was 4-1. This was when I was with the RFA. I lost my pro debut. I won 4 straight, 3 in the RFA. And I was very close to signing with the UFC. I was told, a fight or 2 away. But I was going to actually come out here to Colorado to fight. And the guy turned me down. The fight didn't happen. And I was really pissed because I hadn't fought in a few months. I was like, dude, I need to fight. And I was on a contract with them. We're like, all right, you can take a local fight. But, don't be an idiot. Fight. I should have fought a can, in the backyard. Instead, I fought in a local promotion. I fought a guy, Danny Aguirre, who at the time I think was 12-3. I was 4-1, and it's, a local fight. And he's the top ranked guy in Illinois. I'm the number 2 guy. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly who I want to fight. Let's go get him. And we went to war. That fight was nuts. I dropped him with a body shot. I had him in a triangle choke for 3 minutes. I just couldn't finish. But he split. He was super tall. He was 6'3", 135. Dude,
wow.
Was so long. He kept hitting me with knees and elbows that, I didn't think I was in punch range, and he was elbowing me. And so there's some pictures. If you ever see a picture of me really looking bad, I mean, they're pretty nasty. It's from that fight because I took some damage. But I thought I won that fight. I had him in deep chokes. I dropped him. I just looked really bad. I'm also pale, white, and I bruise up easily. So I didn't look good, and I lost a split decision, and that was fucking brutal. You know what I mean? I was so close to, achieving things, and to lose a split decision in a fight I thought I won, you sucked. It sucked. But even still, though, I don't have any regrets about that. My regret is that I didn't win. My regret is not that I shouldn't have took that fight.
Right.
I should have finished him when I had that triangle. I should have finished him when I dropped him. Like, it's not that I shouldn't have took it. Like, I'll fight him tomorrow again. I'll fight him 10 more times. I think I win every time. But I think I'm going to win every fight. I think I'm going to beat anybody in the world. If you give me a name and say he wants to fight, I'll be like, hell yeah, he's fucked.
Yeah.
You know?
So I think that's the mentality you have to have.
Yeah, and I think so too. And so, like, that's why, like, I've had situations like that, and that's not the only time something like that's happened where I've, like, you know, been on a good streak and I take a fight maybe I shouldn't have taken. But I truly believe that when it's all said and done, I'll have done what I wanted to do in the sport and I'll be where I want to be. So, like, so what, my road's a little longer.
Yeah,
like,
it's part of the journey.
Fuck, man. Like, I see, like, guys who are, like, 4-0, and they think, like, they're hot shit. It's like, man, like, that's great. But you're not hot shit. Like, it's been 4 fights. You know what I mean? Like, any career, like, that's like a legitimate career, you're going to have 20, 30 fights, right? So, like, we'll see where you stack up after that. So I don't care where I'm at right now after 20 fights. I want to see where I'm at after 40 fights. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter, like, where you're at any certain point. It matters at the end, where did you go?
Yeah.
You know
Anthony Smith is a great recent example of that, where he's been around to a bunch of promotions, and it took some time, but he's 40-something fights in when he's getting a shot at John Jones earlier this year.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. It's the long game in mixed martial arts career for sure.
For sure. Let's hope so.
So what prompted the move from being in Chicago, Illinois, working with the Currans, to moving to Colorado?
So my girlfriend, her name is Brenda. I have been in love with her since I was 13 years old.
Shout out to Brenda.
She's incredible. But we, that crazy fight I was just talking about with Danny Aguirre where I got all busted up, that was the first night we got back. She was, like, living in Missouri, went to college. I hadn't seen her in years. And she, like, just moved back home. I was like, hey, I'm fighting in 2 weeks. You should come. You know, I got her a ticket. She came up to my fight. I was all fucked up, and she fell in love with me again, and it was great. So, like, we went on our first date the day after that while I looked like the dude from the Goonies. It was funny. But, like, after that, we got together, and we had vacationed out here a bunch. She worked the summer out here, like, on a horse ranch. And so she always wanted to move out here, and we started vacationing out here. We came probably 4 or 5 times, and, like, we both decided that, you know, this is where we want to end up, is in Colorado. Like, it's so much nicer than the Midwest. Like, you know, so this is where we want to be. And then she was working downtown Chicago, and I was still, you know, in where I was at with Team Curran. And she got an opportunity to move out here, got a job opportunity, a really good job opportunity. And she's like, this is it. This is, like, what I've always wanted. And I was like, well, I'm not going to let you go without me. So I came out here, checked out, you know, training with Elevation. And I was like, man, the gym's great, training's great. Like, I'm in. Let's do it. So
an investment in your lifestyle, in your girlfriend, and her future, but then also you found that you could be a good fit at Team Elevation.
It was like, I was shocked at how great, like, training was great. I came out here for a week to train, and I was like, man, this is awesome. Like, I need to be out here training. And, like, it was really hard for me to leave. Like, I don't think I ever would have done it on my own. Yeah. I think it's been good for me. But, like, Jeff Curran he was my idol, like, that first day I walked in the gym, and he still is that. And he's like, we are very close. And my best friend, Joey Deal, he is out there, and we're best friends because we started fighting both when we were teenagers. We have, like, a similar story. And so it was very hard for me to, like, leave them. And, like, I still consider myself part of Team Curran and, like, that. Like, Jeff will forever be my head coach and stuff like that. But, like, coming out here was great for my training. Like, I have, like, didn't have many bodies back home. Like, you know, I was sparring with the same guy. Yep. Right? So, like, out here now I have all these bodies. I have all these, like I said, 5 to 6 gyms I go to. So it's been just great. Like, I'm so happy how everything has worked out. Yeah. It's been cool.
So the investment in your career, moving to Colorado, and your relationship certainly paid off?
Certainly paid off, for sure, yeah.
And I know that you also have spent some time in Thailand. Is that right?
Yeah, so I spent in, 2017, 2016, in December. I spent a month at Sitman Chai out in Thailand, which is something I definitely am trying to do again this year. It was awesome. So I always kind of, once I started training, I thought about, like, I had seen it, and then I got hired a new Muay Thai coach at our gym back in Chicago. His name was Ian Alexander, and he was awesome, really great coach, and he had been to Thailand and, talked to me about going to Thailand once. I was like, man, that sounds awesome. I never really thought about it before that. I was like, man, that sounds awesome. And then he ended up leaving the gym, and it wasn't until a couple years later I was like, man, what? Like, I always, in the back of my head, was like, I should go to Thailand. And one of the people that actually really got me to do it was Brenda. She's great too. I was always like, man, I want to go to Thailand. She's like, go to Thailand. What? Like, quit telling me. Just go do it. I was like, oh yeah, why don't I just go do it? So I, booked a plane ticket, went out there. And that was one of the best experiences I've had. You know what I mean? You just wake up, run, hit pads, eat, run, hit pads. It was
you live
so
the life
great.
of a fighter, day in, day out.
I mean, yeah, day in, day out. It was awesome. It was so cool. And I took a fight out there. I think it was like 2 weeks in. They're like, hey, do you want to fight? I was like, yeah, I sure do. Well, you got something? Like, yeah, we got to fight tomorrow night. I was like, all right, I'll go fight. So I fought it was called Asia Teak. It's like a mall in Bangkok, and they have this big, like, Muay Thai show, but like the first half of the show is like it's like a show, like a play with Muay Baran. They do like a big demonstration, and then after that they have like 2 or 3 fights. So I fought on that. I fought half Australian, half Thai guy who had like 6 or 7 fights in Thailand. I fought him, and I chopped him with low kicks. Dropped him with low kicks. I dropped him with a knee to the head, and then the ref stopped it in the first round, which was awesome. It was such a cool experience.
And that's Sitman Chai's style, if I remember correctly, the leg kicks, right?
Yeah, so I was at Sitman Chai in the outskirts of Bangkok, and that's their style, is heavy hands and heavy low kicks, which has always been kind of my style, which is why I chose to go there. Huh. When I started looking up, I've always loved kicking the legs, and I like to throw heavy. So like, they matched perfectly with me, and it was awesome being.
And that
there.
was your first pro Muay Thai or kickboxing bout 2 weeks into being in Thailand?
That was actually my first Muay Thai fight ever. And
wow.
Like, I never took any amateur Muay Thai fights or anything.
So straight to the pros.
Straight to it, yeah, which was cool.
Very nice. So you feel like that experience helped your career?
Yeah. It helped me. Like, it just helped me as a person. Like, that was something that was really great for me. Like, and something that I still think about all the time. Like, being out there and that stuff. So I think it helped me in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Find some spiritualness to the martial arts journey, perhaps.
Sure. And hopefully, I'd like to, at the end of this year, try to go back there for another month or 2.
Yeah.
I think that'd be fucking fun.
Would you take another Muay Thai fight?
Yeah, I'd probably try to take at least 3 or 4.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. And so how would you say that your goals have changed from the beginning of your career to now?
So, at the beginning of my career, I just wanted to fight. Like, I don't think I had goals like early in my career, like, other than like, this is just what I wanted to do. Like, my goal was living this
pursuing
lifestyle.
it as a career.
Yeah. And I had a good talk with my buddy Joey, actually, when we were out, and he came out and quartered me in the Czech Republic, and I ended up losing that fight. And I had a good talk with him. Like, I was like, man, like, I'm so depressed because I lost, and I'm down, and like, I lost again. Like, I have these losses, and I was like, but I think, like, to myself at 15, I'm like, man, if I could tell 15-year-old me, like, I'm in the Czech Republic fighting some guy, and I've spent the last 8 years of my life traveling the world fighting people, like, this is the goal. Like,
you're living the dream.
This is it. Like, this, like. And you don't, like, in life, I think you don't recognize things like that. You know what I mean? Like, you don't, until you sit and think, like, you don't recognize, like, man, I am doing what I wanted to do. Like, I am living that dream, and I've attained that goal. But my goals now have, like, I'm over just doing this. You know what I mean? Like, I've been doing this.
They've evolved a little bit.
Yeah, I don't want to just do this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to become a world champion. My goal now is to become a world champion, wherever that may be.
So you'd be open to doing that in, like, a one championship or a Bellator, not necessarily the UFC, or is the UFC
the UFC is the end goal. I need to fight in the UFC at some point in my life. I mean, I can't have been here and done all this and not fight there. Like, I can't. I need to at some point fight there. But I want to be a world champion as well. So if that happens before that somewhere else, then so be it.
Yeah.
And I love it, and I'm so happy. But those are two things now, right? Like, I need to finish with having fought in the UFC, and I need to have finished with having a world championship belt on me. And that's it. And those are the two things I'm focused on now. And like I said, I think it like took a lot away from me before not having those goals. I think like just wanting to be this fighter, like I accomplished that, and then like I was just doing that, and it was like great and it was cool, but like I don't think I was in the right headspace. Like I need to be striving for what I really want, and that's what, you know, like it took me some like introspection and like looking at myself like, man, this is what I want. Like why am I not that yet? Like let's go get it, you know?
Yeah. So the goal evolved from being a prize fighter, being a pro fighter, which you accomplished, and then kind of maybe this is the middle of your career, you realize that, hey, I need to readjust my goal and aim a little bit higher. I achieved what I set out to achieve, so now it's on to the next goal. Let's check the next goal off the list.
Yeah, I think like I got too comfortable.
Yeah.
Too. Like I was just, you know, and not like I mean, you can ask anybody who I've trained. Like I've always been pushing. Like I've never like, you'd never be like, oh yeah, he's just comfortable where he's at. But like mentally, I think I was just like comfortable.
I think that happens to a lot of people in life and outside of fighting. So the self-recognition is critical for the next step. And
for sure,
you know, I think you're taking the perfect next step Friday at LFA in Vail.
So do I. I am like, I was trying so hard to get on this card, and I'm so happy. Like it's been. It feels like it's been a while since I've been like on, like this is national TV, you know what I mean? Like people see it and I'm like, man, like it feels good to be back in this spot, and like I think I'll put on the best performance I've ever put on, and I think it'll, like this is put up, you know, it's put up time, and I'm ready to do it.
I'm happy and I'm very excited for you.
Thanks,
and good luck on Friday.
I appreciate it.
So if people want to follow you online, how can they find you online?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at Galloway135, right, or Cory Galloway on Facebook. That's me, yeah.
Beautiful. So go follow Cory Galloway. And Cory, thank you so much for talking to me today.
Awesome,
I appreciate
Thanks for having me. It was so much fun.
Good. And we'll have you sign that banner on the way out.
Sweet.
Too. And for all our listeners and viewers, Cory's fight is this Friday, May 3rd in Vail, Colorado at the Dobson Arena. Doors open at 4:30, fights start at 5. You can buy tickets online at lfatix.com or from Cory Galloway himself. Go give him some credit. You can also enter his name in online if you choose to buy the ticket online. And then you can also watch it on Access TV, so don't miss it. And thanks to our fans for watching or listening to the show. Don't forget to subscribe to the DA Media YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram at PrizeFightBiz. Check out the website at theprizefightingbusiness.com. Thanks for listening.